Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's kick off today's video with a story about the chaotic reality of working as a security officer in a large HOA community. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. HOA resident throws a fit over Lyft versus Uber, files a complaint. I work at a large HOA community and I deal with a lot of verbal abuse and ridiculous situations, like being questioned for letting a child in without an ID, even though I see them every day. This story happened about a month ago, and I only just found out the resolution today. I work at one of the gates a few days a week, and part of my job is taking calls from residents to add their guests to the OK list for the day. Even if the line's backed up to the street, we still have to take the calls. It's annoying, but it's part of the job. One day, I got a call from a woman, BL, who asked if I could add someone to her list. Me. Sure, what's the name and address? BL. I need a window washing company added to the list. They're coming today to give an estimate. Me. No problem, what's the company's name? BL. I don't know, but it's a guy. Can you just put window washer guy on the list? This happens all the time, so I didn't think much of it. Me. Sure thing, have a great day. About 30 minutes later, the window washer guy shows up. I check his ID, let him in, and move on. Not even 5 minutes later, BL calls back furious. BL, that's not the right company. How is security this bad? I can't believe I'm paying for this. I was about to explain that she hadn't given me the company name, but she hung up before I could say anything. Fast forward a week, she calls again. BL, this is BL at the house with all the tacky gnome golfers on the porch, which is against HOA rules, by the way. I need to add Uber to my list. They should be here soon. Think you can handle that? I caught the sarcasm in her voice, but I didn't think much of it. Me, of course. About 7 minutes later, an Uber driver shows up asking for BL. Oh no, she'd asked for Uber, but it was actually a Lyft driver. I had the biggest smile on my face after dealing with this woman. I called the number, but she didn't pick up, so I left a message. Instead of just letting him go, I politely turned the driver away. He was really chill about it, saying it happens all the time, and he canceled the ride. 2 minutes later, I get a call from BL. She completely flipped out. BL, why did you turn my Uber away? I called you less than 15 minutes ago to add them to the list. Now I'm going to be late for work. What's your supervisor's name? I want their number, email, whatever it is, give it to me. Me. Ma'am, you asked for Uber, but that was actually Lyft. She was silent for a moment, then hung up. I logged everything in my report and submitted it at the end of the day. Turns out she filed a formal complaint against me, not just to my company, but also to the HOA. About 3 hours ago, I had a meeting with the general manager about what happened. Apparently, she knows some board members and really pushed to get me fired. Luckily, my supervisor backed up my story, and the GM decided to throw out the complaint, saying it was technically a different company. Wow, what a roller coaster of Karen-level entitlement. First of all, props to you for handling all this with professionalism and a straight face. The audacity to file a complaint when she's the one giving vague or wrong instructions is just peak HOA drama. The real MVP here is your supervisor for backing you up and the GM for seeing through her nonsense. Hope she enjoyed the irony of being late for work due to her own instructions. Hang in there. Sounds like you're the unsung hero of HOA chaos management. And our second story. Karen claims her husband is the CEO. This happened about 10 years ago when I was working at a boutique outdoor equipment shop in a wealthy suburb of Boston. This was a premium store that catered to high-end clientele, the kind of folks who wore Patagonia to Whole Foods and called it rugged. I worked there for a year, and while I expected the most challenging part of the job to be dealing with indecisive hikers, the real pain turned out to be their entitled counterparts, Karens. This particular Karen, however, was the undisputed queen. It was a quiet weeknight in the middle of summer, just 5 minutes from closing. The staff was already daydreaming about going home when Karen stormed in, dragging her embarrassed 7 or 8-year-old daughter behind her. Clutched in Karen's manicured hand was a pair of absolutely filthy, worn-out hiking sandals. One of the straps was dangling like a limp noodle. She marched up to the counter and demanded a refund for the clearly defective sandals. "They're dangerous," she exclaimed. "My daughter could have been seriously injured, and I only bought these last week." Now, I might have been a lowly retail worker, but I had a bizarre talent for remembering the stock we sold, including which items were clearly inventory. I knew these sandals had been part of a clearance sale over a year ago, shipped in from another store to help us get rid of old stock. Karen's claim that she'd bought them last week was a bold-faced lie. I politely explained that we couldn't accept the return. The sandals were far beyond the return period. They'd been final sale clearance items, and most glaringly, they were heavily used. You didn't need Sherlock Holmes to deduce that these sandals had trekked through half of Massachusetts. Karen, predictably, was not having it. "I want to speak to your manager," she screeched. Enter Jake, manager, who had zero tolerance for entitled nonsense. Jake listened to Karen's tirade with a calm, almost amused expression. Then she delivered the same answer I had. "We can't process this return. These sandals were final sale, heavily worn, and clearly not a recent purchase." Karen exploded. She turned a shade of red I didn't think was physically possible and unleashed her pièce de résistance. "My husband's the CEO of Patagonia. He's friends with the CEO of your company, and I will ensure your CEO friend will have your jobs. You'll be fired by tomorrow." Now, Jake was not only unimpressed, she was amused. Jake had just finished an MBA program and had read a case study on Patagonia's leadership. She knew for a fact that the CEO of Patagonia at the time was an environmentalist who didn't live anywhere near Boston. Jake responded with icy calm. "Ma'am, unless your husband's name is Yvon Chouinard, that's simply not true. And even if it were, why are you so desperate to get a refund on a pair of sandals?" Karen was livid. Her face contorted in a way that made her look like a toddler denied a cookie. "How dare you insinuate I'm a liar?" she bellowed. "You don't know anything. You're just a retail worker." Then came the kicker. "I am not a liar, and my husband will have your jobs by tomorrow." At this point, the daughter was tugging at Karen's sleeve, begging to leave, clearly mortified. Karen was not done, though. She demanded to stay inside to have the last word, but unfortunately for her, we'd already locked the doors for closing. As I awkwardly unlocked the door to let Karen and her daughter out, she stomped out dramatically, tossing over her shoulder, "You'll regret this. You'll hear from us again." Spoiler alert, we didn't. Jake and I had a good laugh about it after closing up. We knew there wasn't a single chance Karen's imaginary CEO husband was going to storm into corporate and demand our termination. The next day, I shared the story with the rest of the staff, and Patagonia's CEO became our inside joke for months. Karen never returned to the store, and the infamous sandals remained safely retired on her end. Sometimes you just have to marvel at the audacity of people. First, hats off to you and Jake for handling this CEO of Patagonia's wife nonsense with such calm professionalism. Her desperation to scam a refund for a pair of heavily abused sandals is both hilarious and pathetic. Honestly, Karen's poor daughter might be the real victim here. Imagine having to live through that level of public embarrassment. And our last story. No, this is not my pool. It's your bathtub filled with chemicals that'll expose the truth about you. This is a story about my crazy neighbor Karen. Yes, her name's actually Karen, and she fully lives up to it. I work night shifts and have a pool in my backyard that I'm quite proud of. Especially in the summer, it's absolutely indispensable. But Karen decided the pool belonged to her. A few weeks ago, I noticed that the pool loungers were often wet and the gate was sometimes left open. At first, I thought it was my brother. He occasionally comes over when I'm not home, and I didn't see a reason to worry. One evening, while having a beer with him, I casually asked if he'd been using the pool. He said no and mentioned he hadn't been in my yard for a couple of weeks. That's when I started to suspect something was off and decided to check the footage from my security cameras. The recordings were only saved for the past 2 weeks, but that was enough. The video showed Karen sneaking into my yard 3 times. Twice she came with one guy and the third time with another. It seemed like she was using my pool as a spot for her romantic getaways. Her audacity was so shocking. I didn't even know how to react. My vacation was starting in 3 days, so I decided to deal with the situation then. After my night shifts, I was so exhausted that I spent most of the day sleeping. Meanwhile, I kept up with my routine maintenance tasks, including cleaning the pool. The day before my shift, I added standard cleaning chemicals to the water, a mix of chlorine and algicides. These chemicals are necessary to kill bacteria and prevent algae growth. After adding them, the pool cannot be used for 24 hours. I left a sign that read, "Danger, chemicals in pool," and went to work. Around midnight, I got a call from the police. Karen claimed I'd tried to poison her. I was in shock. I had to leave work early and come home to deal with the situation. When I arrived, Karen was standing outside my house putting on a dramatic show, complaining about burning eyes and skin irritation. The police seemed to take her claim seriously at first, but I showed them the camera footage. The video clearly showed Karen climbing over my fence and jumping into the pool with one of her male companions. After Karen accused me of trying to poison her, I calmly presented the police with documents proving that my pool is private property. I explained that, first of all, she had no right to be on my property, and second, the warning sign about the chemicals was clearly visible. The police quickly realized that Karen was in the wrong, and I decided to press charges for trespassing. But that wasn't the end of it. While I was explaining the situation to the police, Karen continued her dramatic antics, which only made things worse for her when an interesting detail came to light. Karen had a husband. And as it turned out, neither of the men in the camera footage was her husband. This information quickly got back to her spouse. A couple of days later, he knocked on my door. Surprisingly, he was calm and polite. He introduced himself and explained that he'd already heard about what happened. He asked if I could share the camera footage with his lawyer. Turned out he was planning to file for divorce, and the videos would serve as excellent evidence of her infidelity. I gave him copies of the footage, and the story took an unexpected turn. Karen's husband used the recordings in court. In the end, he not only divorced her, but also won all their jointly owned property in the settlement. Word around the neighborhood is that Karen now lives in a small apartment and is trying to recover from the fallout. Karma is not to be trifled with. Karen got exactly what she deserved because of her arrogance and disrespect for others. Deception is bound to come to light. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.